Alrighty, good morning folks, it's Jason with the Primal Outdoors channel, and we are still at the shop. I have one more project that I would really like to accomplish before I head back off into the wilderness. Now, for longtime followers of the channel, many of you probably remember me wearing this Wool Anorak. I used to get tons of questions about it, about where I got it, where people could get it, and the truth of it is, this is something I made. I actually made this out of a military wool blanket, a Belgian military wool blanket that I found on Amazon. And unfortunately, it was a limited supply. So once I got the blanket, there was no more available to get. So this is definitely a one of a kind. But because I enjoyed this so much and it was so warm and comfortable around camp, I wore it all the time. And it started to show some wear, especially around the sleeves, right down here around the bottom of the cuff where you just wear on that area a lot. It started to come apart, and I decided to put it away until I had time to fix it and maybe come up with some way to reinforce that. But I've just never gotten around to it. And I've now decided that instead of trying to fix this one, which unfortunately I'm seeing other spots where the wool is just coming undone, I've decided instead of trying to put time and effort into this one and fixing it, I'm going to go ahead and make a new one. Alright, so as you can see from the workbench here that I've got put together, I've got the materials I'm going to be using for making the new anorak. I sourced a wool blanket from Faribault Mills. I'm probably saying that wrong, but I've bought blankets from them in the past, and in fact that's what I have on my bed that I sleep with every night, and I've been really happy with the quality of the blankets that they sell. This is in no way sponsored by them or actually anybody else that I'm going to be talking about today. But I have been, like I said, very happy with the blankets. Now these are a little bit high end and they're a little bit expensive. This blanket I believe cost me $200, and it is a full size blanket, and that should give me enough material to make the anorak out of. Then in order to try to keep those sleeves from coming undone, I'm going to trim all of the sleeves and the bottom and around the hood piece with lambskin. So I went to Weaver Leather, again not sponsored, went to Weaver Leather, and I sourced some lambskin that I'm going to be using for this project. I've got actually 3 different ones just to make sure I would have enough. Part of the reason why I've got 3 instead of actually just 2 is this is one of those deals where you get a deal if you spend a little extra money, you don't pay for shipping. And it just so happened that the cost of what the shipping was going to be was the cost of one more lambskin. So I just said I'd rather pay for another lambskin, whether I use it or not, than just pay for shipping. So we got 3 lambskins that we can use. And then another thing I have is the pattern. Now this pattern is a pattern I made. When I originally made my first one. This will actually be my 4th anorak that I have made for myself. Over the years. I wear them until they fall apart, and then I usually source another blanket, and then I make another one just like we're going to do now. So I made this pattern years ago. Now, for those that might be interested in doing this project yourself, there are places like Green Prepper that they have online where you can order patterns and then you can make an anorak for yourself using their pattern. I know, I think a buddy of mine went that route and made an anorak for a very famous YouTuber that many of you might know. And that's, I think, where he started. I think he did some tweaks on it and personalized it a little bit, but I think that's the base of where that anorak came from. But again, if you're looking at doing your own anorak, that's a good place to start. But I'm going to be using my pattern that I use because I just know it works and I know it fits me well. So anyways, first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and get my blanket laid out, and we're going to start cutting my pieces using my pattern. So alright, so now as you can see, I've got all the pieces cut out. There is one small piece I got to still cut that for some reason is missing in my pattern, and that's the little throat patch that goes behind the laces. But I can figure that out. It's a pretty simple piece. But yeah, we've got our front, our back, our two sleeves, the hood, and the pocket. So with all that cut out now, I think what I'm going to start doing is figuring out the strips of leather I'm going to need to be able to trim all these pieces that are going to have leather on them. Alright guys, well I think we're ready to start assembling some things. We've got everything pretty well cut out. There's still a couple little pieces here or there that I'll need to cut out as I go. But we're going to start with just trimming out the pieces that are going to have the leather on them. So I've got the pocket. This is going to have a little trim on it as well. So I'm going to get it done first. And then we'll just go through all the other pieces that have trim on them. Alright, so we finally got all the leather trim done. That was a little bit more difficult than I thought it would be. So I have to admit, it's not perfect in every spot. A few things I wish came out a little bit better, but in the end, since it's just for me, it should be fine. So we're going to start moving on to actually assembling everything at this point. So the next thing is I'm going to sew the front and back together in the shoulder area. So basically I'm just going to make this stitch here and the stitch here to kind of connect the front and back, and then we'll be connecting the hood on. Alright, so that's basically where we're at right now. We got front, back, probably looks like a cape right now. But there's where we're at right now. So the next thing I'm actually going to do is sew the hood onto the back and then down the front. Alright, so like I showed you last time, we had the front and back. Now we've got the hood primarily sewn on. This will actually fold over like this. Once we finally do the final sewing, this will be like that, something like that. But now you can kind of see where we're at with the project. I still got to make this patch, and I think that's what I'm going to go do next real quick. I'm just going to go cut that off camera and get that, because that'll have to get sewn in next. And then before I get too far, I also need to get the pocket on. Alright guys, well I had to back up a minute because I realized I was getting ahead of myself. I need to serge some of my seams before I go any further. And so if you don't know what that means, I'm going to take these rough edges where I've sewn, but now I've got still just these open edges, and I'm going to serge them. And what that does is it puts a nice little overlock stitch over the top, so it locks everything in nice and neat so it won't fray. I don't know if you can see that very well, but basically it'll go through this machine, it'll cut the material and sew over the top, leaving me a nice finished edge looking very professional. So I need to do that on a few of the seams before I go any further, because if I go any further I won't be able to get to them later. folks, well, we're getting ready to start on this project again today. We finished up last night with getting the throat patch all sewn in, a little piece of leather trim that I'm going to have at the bottom. This is actually a different way than I've done it in the past, and pretty happy with the way it came out, though. Honestly, I think I would have approached sewing it a little bit differently than I did last night. But we've got that all done, so now pretty much that area is done, other than we'll have to add the laces later, but we'll do that in another part of the video. And then I went ahead and got the pockets sewed in, and so that's ready to go. So we're going to move forward today with getting the arms sewn in. All right, so we've got the arms sewn in, basically just the shoulder part here, but now it's time to actually tie everything in together. So I'm going to start at the arm, and I'm going to sew all the way down and then all the way down to the base of the garment. Alright, so basically what I'm doing is I'm just getting this thing out, giving it a quick look over. I'm going to even put it on to make sure that everything's good before I finish it out and serger the seams that I just did. So far, it looks like everything's pretty well okay. Everything looks sewed in. So let's see if we can get this thing on. All right, nice fit. Hands go in the pockets. All right. Tell you what, I am pretty stoked about this. It's a nice fit. Feels nice and tight. Got a nice bunch at the arms, so that, you know, when I put my arms out, they don't like ride up on me or anything. I really like that. And it goes down low down here, which I really like, because when I sit down, I like this to be kind of almost under my butt, so that way I don't get that draft coming up for your back that I often get with store-bought stuff, because I can't oftentimes get stuff that's tall enough for me. So yeah, so far I think we're good to go. So like I said, I'm going to take this off. Now I need to serger those seams so that we can get it all finished out. And then we'll start working on the buttons and the lace up. All right, so at this point we're all done sewing. We've got everything all sewed up, all the serging's done. So now the next thing is to do the grommets for the lace up the front. So what I'm going to do is I've already got the holes marked where I want them to go. I'm going to use my soldering iron to burn a hole in those spots. That makes it easy for me to get my grommets in and then hammer them in. All right, guys, well, we are all done. We got the laces in and everything's all sewn. Man, I tell you what, this was a much bigger project than I remember, but I'm glad to be done with it, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out. It's not perfect, and there's definitely some things about it that I would try to do better or differently in the future, but all in all, I'm happy enough with it for something that I've made for myself. If you guys are interested in, DIYing one, I hope that this video was helpful to you in some way or gave you some direction, some ideas. If you're not interested at all in DIYing one of these like I did, you can look at the Leicester River Boreal shirt. And that's the one I actually modeled this pattern off of years ago when I first made my first one. They make a great product, and you can check out their website if you don't want to make one yourself. I'm not interested personally in making any for anybody for selling these in any type of way. I just don't have the time or the inclination to want to take on a project like that. So I'm sorry, there will be no sales from my website. Anyhow, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was interesting in some way. If it was, please do give a like. Comments and questions are great, and we'll catch you guys again outside.